Hello, hello, good afternoon. Just a quick sound check. Am I audible and clear?
Yeah, all good.
Thank you. So just setting up my timer, I'll begin with the countdown. Beginning my speech in three, two, one. Panel, if you are debating this motion under the perspective of an average person from literally any district, with the hope of you either participating in these games or being simply another spectator who watches these games unfold, we say that it would be much more preferable to watch the Hunger Games or to have the Hunger Games instead of the Quid Game. Firstly, on some important clarifications. The first is on the format itself that these games manifest in. I think the info side was clear on this one, but just to bring it all home, the Hunger Games has a voting system where only 25 participants are selected, meaning the districts themselves have an agency to select their district's best to enter this competition with the most chances of winning. Compare that to a world wherein, or compare that to the Quid Game rather, wherein the selection of participants are not only much more massive in magnitude, but also it's random. Meaning, you don't know whether or not you will be drafted into this, and you are, for the most part, without agency. The second thing then is on what the people on the ground need. Because notice how in the info slide it was explicitly mentioned that you are living under a dictatorship. That is, whether you're in District 1 or in District 12, the point is you're still fundamentally oppressed, in, even if you have certain things like wealth delineating it to some extent, for the most part, you still don't have access likely to certain liberties. That being said, we say that living expenses are likely high across all districts, which is why they have to separate it according to wealth. That is the reason why certain districts have not achieved social mobility, even if they may have the talent or the skills needed. And more than that, likely because of the stratification according to the districts, opportunities and access to basic liberties is going to be massively different. And that's what delineates and what's most proximate to you if you are the average person. More than that, conditions are likely going to be always be bad, and the tipping point of this debate is simple. Where can you maximize the benefits of the game that you are playing? For that, we will argue three things coming from side opening government. But before that, any clarifications? Three, two, one, none. Okay. The first argument is to say that social mobility is exclusive under the side of opening government. Three levels to this. The first is that we would like to point out how at the end of the day, no matter what game you play, if you were entered into these games, the most proximate concern to you will be your own family, the people who are closest to you. That is, your family likely lives in whatever district you're from, and that you're going to dedicate your performance of the game to them. One, because you want to make their conditions better, and two, obviously you want to survive and you want to be able to interact with them again. You don't want to lose them just as much as they don't want to lose you. This is where the important question of this debate comes in. What's more preferable then? The price of the power that you get from winning the Hunger Games or the money that you get coming from the Quid Game? We're willing to argue that it's the former that matters more. Moreover, we say the next thing that we want to claim is that we say that this power and this ability to lobby in the court of the dictator, as the info side suggests, is more important than any consumerist reward that you will get under the Quid Game. Why? One, with money, you can obviously help your family, and we concede to that. The difference then is that's very much short-termist compared to the reward that you get if you won and you participated in probably the Hunger Games. Why? Because when you win, you have the power to lobby in the dictator's court. You can make an active effort to lobby for change that will benefit your district, which will benefit not just your family who is closest to you, thus not eliminating the incentive for you to do it, but also making an active effort to also make the lives of those from your district better. Compare that to who you're able to help and the change you're able to enact if you live under the world of opposition wherein they prefer the quid game. You're only able to benefit a select number of people with the money that you gain. Meaning, in terms of impact, I want you panel to note how in the sheer magnitude of change that we can enact, OG is already above OO. Because of the sheer ability for you to lobby policies and so on. And simply because money evaporates much more quicker. The second thing that you want to note then is on the agency of the player. Note how the framing a while ago is important. The voting system against the random system of the quid game. Notice how because the districts are able to select their representatives, they can likely select people whom are well equipped and they think are skilled enough to conquer these games. Meaning, A lot of these people who will enter into the games enter with the knowledge that they are likely going to die, but they were being prepared for this in the first place. Compare that to the sudden realization that you are about to participate in a death game that is the Quid Game, unbeknownst to you because it was a random selection and a random drafting. Now that existential dread and the harm is more apparent in the event that you are drafted. In terms of impacts, then, we say that it beholdens you to pure helplessness the moment that the Quid Games is the much preferred game compared to the Hunger Games, where likely there are mechanisms through which you're able to adjust and cope with these things much, much sooner. And even if you don't believe that to be true, just look at the sheer magnitude of players. In the Hunger Games, only 12 people or only 24 people will likely have to die, compared to the hundreds that will lose their lives under pointless bloodshed trying to play a pointless game under the hope of enacting marginal change at best under the world of opposition where they defend the
But
Quid Game. Before I go to my last argument, go POI now.
I think that this will be 25 participants from each school, which means that there will be totally as much as 300 people who participate, and 300 and 400 people will not have a huge difference here.
No, I disagree. The sheer magnitude of it just says it all. What would the audiences prefer? Witnessing 400 people try to kill each other or just 25? I think that's a very simple no-brainer. The last thing then that we want to argue is on the messaging that you receive if you're a viewer of the Hunger Games. Two levels to this. One is the simple claim that the Hunger Games provides a much more hopeful messaging. Insofar that the people whom you select and the people who are poised to win coming from your district are likely going to be perceived as heroes. It's a story of hope. It's a critique and a spectacle of rebellion. You get the hero treatment when you win. You'll be the next Katniss Everdeen, the next Tita Millark, and so on. And other than that, we say that compare that to the harms that you get in op. The emphasis on chaos is much more apparent because they really just want to see people kill each other. And two, that's likely the money that they will win from that is going to be spent only to those most proximate to them, meaning they can't change the entire district, can't change the entire community. Compare that to the benefit that you get that we posited earlier. The last thing then is a direct preemption to the case that opposition bench may run. That is, the rich can bet and likely people will have a massive prize pool for this. Note that one, the burden that opposition need to prove is that these rich people will bet in the first place. Because in the first place, what incentive do these rich people have to bet on something that they cannot win in the first place? They need to prove that high burden for them and that exists exclusively to them. Whereas on us, if you are going to watch the Hunger Games or if you're going to play in the Hunger Games, likely the rewards that you will get is much higher. And for you, the average viewer, the messaging is also better and more hopeful compared to anything the opposition bench can posit. And for that, we're proud to propose.
Thank you for that speech calling on LO. Here, here.
Fire. I was not in the Zoom. I did not hear PM, but it's fine. Our case is good regardless. Inshallah. Okay. Okay, right. You know what? It's fine. Wait, I'll mute here. Okay.
Yeah, I think OO, like, to clarify,
Yeah.
we assumed everything was good in here because you guys, like,
Yeah, I
were
just joined.
acknowledged
It's fine. I'm sorry. Okay, it's fine. I'll just run my case. All right. 3, 2, 1. First off, I'm just gonna go into some framing. More or less, I'm gonna like define like what the actual marks in this debate is, and then like just more or less going on to like the structural differences between like Quid Game, like Hunger Game, whatever. Again, anyways, so the margin lies in the structural differences between the Hunger Games and Quid Game, right? Basically, that like we're going to argue that Quid Game creates more equitable opportunities, is going to redistribute wealth, and breaks down class barriers and making it a better system for achieving systemic change. And I'll tell you that even if we don't get to social disruption, we still prefer Quid Game. First of all, okay, more or less burden. I think that like the Hunger Games inherently entrenches structural violence more severely than Quid Games. Why is this? I think that both are morally abhorrent, but then like the Quid Game gets better incentives and outcomes. Why is this? I think that in the comparative, Quid Game is less societal harm. You get more like agency upon individual people, right? Like when you like the Hunger Games, it's inherently like in hierarchical oppression. Why is this? One winner with elite status, you are integrating them back into the dictator's inner circle, right? This creates incentives for loyalty to the regime, the hierarchy, and conformity, not resistance. I think it's important to note that, like, again, it's only the individual who gets who actually gets ascended into the elite, and it's not their families, right? So I think this is a big margin of change. Again, compared to, like, to a monetary prize where people are like more or less going to be like redistributing this to their family, like the people around them. When you are like accepted back into the elite, and you're like basically babied by them, and like basically telling them, yeah, you're telling them to like reinforce the system. I think this is like a net bad, and like you're not actually like getting a big margin change. Okay, what do we have to prove to win? I think this more or less like the Quid Game is like more like opportunities. I think that you're breaking down class hierarchy, and then like you get increased social disruption. Why is this? Okay, why does the Quid Game break down class structure? I think a few mechanisms to this. First of all, like districts. Quid Game is not restricted to one specific district, unlike the Hunger Games, which like involve participants from each district based on wealth and class. I think basically, assuming we have 400 people, you're probably getting like an statistical distribution of people all over Panem. I think like to note like the like dynamics of like Hunger Games in itself, right? They're like specifically like 1 to 3 are the rich. They typically dominate. These are the careers, right? They train for the games all of their life, and like there's more like people actively volunteer in the upper districts as opposed to like 11 and 12, whereas like people like again Katniss winning is like the whole point of the Hunger Game books is that like this is like a one in like a lifetime, and then also no panel that like even if a poor person does win the Hunger Games and does get elevated class, I think like they are actively used as political pawns, because again the hierarchy in the capital has like incentive to use these like success stories, use these underdogs to further like propagate propaganda and to further indoctrinate people into these systems. This is like actively engaging people to like basically appeal to the elite, and you're getting like boo kissers and no thank you, I'll take BOIs in chat please, right? I think that like basically when they do, it's uncommon as hell and like mentally like scared political pawns, right? Okay, I think that like when you have Quid Game, it's randomly distributed. I think that you more or less like favor teamwork, patience, and adaptability. Why is more than one person going to win the Quid Game? I think there's going to be a few reasons for this, but more or less, I think that more like killing is kind of bad. Killing, like people don't want to actively like underpower each other, and people don't actually want to like actually, okay, what a few reasons for this. First of all, I think that like just killing is like hard emotionally. I think even if you don't know someone well, like you're probably like integrated in society, that like you're not going to enforce harm to them because of like religious values, right? Or like because of like your inherent like values. Oh my god. So basically, I think that like more or less like because of like moral disempowerment, because of like the trauma, because of all of this, I think that okay, more reasons. I think that more or less the like there is like going to be a limiting nature, right? Even when betrayal is incentivized, participants still recognize that alliances are crucial to survive in the early stages. In a game with escalating stakes, betrayal can be short-term advantageous, but it can easily like severely like disrupt group cohesions. In the early rounds, cohesive alliance is necessary for players to make it through multiple challenges. Once players have soon actually formed alliances, the game mechanics may not basically people get attached to each other. Like a betrayal, while incentivized, could damage the like players' long-term prospects. Again, the faster that you betray each other, like the faster that like you're probably going to get fucked and you're not going to be able to continue. I think that basically incentive to create basically I think that like you have a long-term like strategic value of allies, right? Like mutual survival and collective power created by an alliance make it more likely to succeed. And then I also, again, like there's psychological costs. While like players might be incentivized to act amongst each other, the mental weight of undermining people that they've come to trust, like form bonds, could weaken their resolve. Participants may experience like basically self-interest and guilt for the betrayal and conflict. Okay, continuing on with this, I think more or less the Quid Game also just like has like inherent material incentives for survivors, like guaranteed rewards for survivors. In the Hunger Games, the winner gets a seat in the dictator's court. This doesn't necessarily translate into genuine wealth or a change in the system. Quid Game offers real material rewards. The survivors win a large cash prize, and that like the prize has more potential to provide financial freedom, with a significant shift in the Hunger Games where a single person's victory doesn't affect the broader system of inequality. Money as a tool for an empowerment. The survival of Quid Game can result in economic liberation. I think that like basically you just provide like more incentive for dissent within, as opposed to like the Hunger Games. I think that like basically okay. You get like more economic distribution. I think that you also just like cataclysing like systemic change, and then also like moral and ethical change. While the Quid Game is like might seem equally brutal, I think that it offers a new form of hope and a potential path to escaping the system, whereas it allows the poor to have a fighting chance to win the game and fundamentally change their life. Again, note that there's an inherent difference between the Hunger Games and like the Quid Games and the like distribution of participants. In the Hunger Games, there are career people that like are are actually trained their whole lives to like putting these games. I think like the Quid Games is probably different from this. My partner will elaborate on this. I think also okay, why when you have like competition doesn't end with betrayal. The game is built around the principle of survival, not just killing others. A single betrayal, while it may kill one person, doesn't guarantee the betrayer's victory, ultimate survival. I think when you have the complexity of the games, you're not necessarily incentivizing people to go like to betray each other. I think that like you're probably able to have cooperative elements in this game. Probably involves multiple children's games, which require inherently teamwork. This opens up the possibility that alliances can form and several participants can successfully navigate in the game together. What is like, oh, I'll give you. I think we gave it like a few key reasons. Again, the Hunger Games inherently entrenches people deeper into the elite. Note that even when people win, even when the poorest people win, like this is probably like governments like made like the biggest impact, the most crucial actor is probably the poorest in this round. Like even if a poor person wins, number one, they're going to be separated from their family. Like again, like they are single-handedly being uploaded to the elite. They're going to betray their family because they're not going to be connected with them. They're going to be used as a political pawn. And then also more or less, you're probably going to have more of an equal distribution for people who actually win the Quid Games, and then also again more than one person is going to be able to win, and then the structural economic like liquidity and being able to redistribute that wealth and create social change is probably like we have a better margin on our side, even if this whatever.
Thank you for that speech calling on BPM. Here.
Thank you. I'll just get my timer. I'll begin on my first word. POIs via chat as much as possible. I'll take around 4th or 5th minute. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The main reason why the Hunger Games is much more preferable to the Quid Game and Panem is because it offers you a justifiable meritocratic incentive structure. It is the only thing that can provide you the most tangible long-term socio-political mobility for winners and just contains fewer moral injustices in how it selects participants and distributes rewards. Let's engage with the biggest push we get from OO. The first thing they say is that you will probably be loyal to the new dictator because you're going to be stripped and uprooted from your own community. This is an incredibly insane push. Why? Because firstly, your lived experiences will not disappear post winning the game, which means that probably if you have friends at home you have already cultivated relationships with, if you have family who you will always look up to, if you have the learned and lived experiences within those people, most likely you are going to be much more proximate to them, which means that the moment you become part of the table, you are much more likely to have some lobbying power at the end of the day. And because you have access to the power, mobility, and voice within the central regime, even if it's still under the influence of the dictator, it at least grants you influence. And notice that this is going to happen regardless if it is tokenistic. Even if you don't necessarily have the power to structurally change the entire system, you're able to institute mini reforms that can at least help people on the ground. So if District 12 needs new mining tools, or if District 11 needs much more agricultural tools, for example, you're at least able to provide it in a much bigger scale, in much sheer magnitude, because you are part of the dictator and they have to follow you by some tokenistic element to at least prove that you won some rewards at the end of the day. The second thing they say is that money is better. And this is where we'd like to flip it, because the financial incentive still exists on their side, which means betrayal is much more likely to happen insofar as those 400 people, a lot of them and the majority of them will likely be desperate for money at the end of the day, which means that they're still probably going to have some incentives to betray others, even if they're going to fake allegiances in the beginning, which means that you just deepen this trust between players. And this is the critical tipping point, because in the Hunger Games, you know that there will be only one person winning, which means that your guard will always be up. And so far as it's in the Squid Game, there's a possibility of multiple people winning. You're likely going to get your guard down, but it makes it much more easier for people to betray you. And the next main impact of this is that there's going to be factionalism between districts. And notice the mechanism of this. It's because in the Hunger Games, districts know that there's only going to be one winner. So if District 11 will betray District 12, they're not going to going to attack other districts or going to be much more factional to other districts because they know it's in the rules of the game. Insofar as in the Quid Game, when they see a fake allegiance between District 11 and District 12, and District 12 stabs District 11 in the back, there's going to be increased polarization, increased factionalism, and hatred between districts because there's a possibility of multiple winners, but a person just betrayed you at the end of the day, which means that intra-district conflicts become much more higher in likelihood and in magnitude at the end of the day. The last thing they have to push is that there's going to be careers at the end of the day who's going to, to begin with, manipulate and monopolize because they're much more trained. Notice this exists in symmetry, right? There's going to be careers irregardless if it's Squid Game or Hunger Games, but the possibility of careers dominating your games become much more higher in the Hunger Games because there's only 2 to 4 careers from District 1 or District 2. Insofar, it's going to be 20 or 40 in District in the 400 member Quid Game, for example, it's much easier for careers to monopolize you and attack you at the end of the day in their side. Which means that if you want to talk about the monopolization of these careers in these games, it becomes much more harder to overcome the hurdle in opposition. Let's talk then about the layers of analysis and competing analysis and prove that why unweighing our main structural arguments still win over all cases of opposition. The first thing you prove to you is that there's going to be institutional empowerment. And the main clash here is which is much more important, the empowerment that you get or the consumerist reward in the first place. Notice that money in Quid Game is inherently limited in Panem because social mobility is still rigidly tied to your district classification. So sure, you might get 1 million coins, but that doesn't move you from district 12 to district 4 because there's no incentive for you to do that, which means that you're probably going to spend that every day of your life, but in 4 years, it's going to disappear. Even a survivor with the most immense wealth remains stuck in their district and under surveillance at the end of the day, which means that if you want to talk about political mobility, you allow winners to access mobility and voice only within the central regime. This is important because Hunger Games winners become symbol of aspiration. Their visibility allows them to subtly advocate for the people in the communities or expose cracks in the regime, just as what Katniss has done in the original narrative. Quid Game survivors are deliberately kept under anonymous denied influence and are reduced to economic capital which the state can still regulate, tax, or revoke at the end of the day. Let's now talk then about the long-term impact of this. Because even if only one person wins the Hunger Games annually, would prove to you on the likelihood of the impact and on the scale and reversibility of it that even if it's narrow, it creates a narrative of possible escape and justice. On Quid Game, your collective cash reward is going to be short-lived or susceptible to state appropriation at the end of the day. Let's talk about the second main weighing here, which is that the Hunger Games allows for agency and skill-based survival, and it's in Quid Game where you are morally arbitrarily choosing people on the ground. Notice that in Hunger Games, participants are going to be chosen by district voting, meaning your own district would have the incentive to choose the best player because they want to lobby their own selves in the district's court, right? Which means that success is going to be based on survival skills, alliances, adaptability, and strategy. On Quid Game, participants are going to be randomly selected. So even if you're a kid who has no way of defending yourself whatsoever, you're going to be forced to play games based largely on chance and psychological manipulation of others to begin with. Which means that morally, this is going to be arbitrarily wrong. Because insofar as we're not just talking about the scale and magnitude of people that are going to play, but also the psychological readiness of the people that are going to play anyway. We also have a very quick preemption here because op might still run the case, especially see that what if you vote like someone you want to bully or someone you really, really hate in your own district and all people in that district vote someone like Lucy Greybeard, for example, in the Song of Songbird and something in Reaping, which means that we still get these people to have some form of social mobility at the end of the day. Because even if it's potentially coercive, it allows the district to select the most capable representatives and give them some control over outcomes. Meaning, even if you're a bad person and they put you in the Hunger Games, the fact that you can still win that Hunger Games and become the lobbying person in your own district possibly means that you get more reputation in your own district and means that you restore your district's faith and trust in you, just as what Lucy Greybeard did. Which means that on the scale and justification of moral agency, it is on the Hunger Games where violence is functionally justified with the logic of survivalism because you put the people who demonstrate their most capability and can possibly win your trust back through their own reputation. In the Quid Game, it is luck and emotional manipulation that determine success, such as guessing the right floor tile in a children's game, which means that it is on your side where you justify the dictatorship's violence at the end of the day. Very, very last thing then on the weighing of the psychological hope that you see in terms of society, right? Because Squid Game, because it kills a lot of people, like 400 people, it becomes a spectacle of mass slaughter, which wherein you emphasize a lot of this slaughter as the main thing here. But it's on Hunger Games, where it becomes a function of spectacle of rebellion, where you create a visible hero for your people on the ground, which means it is only on Hunger Games where you're able to channel rebellion into individual aspiration, just as like what Katniss did. So for all of those three reasons then, we proved to you that we win on three main metrics. First, on the principle of social mobility, agency, and last but not the least, on psychological hope. For all of those reasons, propose.
Thank you for that speech calling on DLO. Here, here.
Am I audible and visible?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. There is a mystery liquid inside this bottle. We'll find out what it is. Yeah. Let me get my timer. Okay. This speech is dedicated to Lirili Larila. All right, my time starts in 3, 2, 1. OG tells us that the people in the Hunger Games will be drafted on their skills to win. Note that this is a this house prefers motion. This is a world where these systems have always existed. This then has a very important implication because this probably looks like in the richest districts, there will be things like training to make sure that the richest are best prepared. This looks like special gyms, special training programs, special classes. The incentive is there because as a parent, there's always a chance that my child at some point in their life gets drafted into the game. And so I'm going to use my abundance of capital to make sure that my child is best prepared in the event, in the case that they do get drafted for a couple of reasons. One, I want what's best for my child. I don't want them to possibly die. So even if there's a very small chance that they might go through this very dangerous game, in the end, I'm going to make sure that they are best prepared. I'm going to use all my capital so they make sure that they're prepared for what the trends of the game tend to be. Second is that it's very prestigious, right? Rich people are often really quite shallow, and so the prestige of having your child be the one that wins the game is incredibly specifically valuable to these people. But the third reason is that you probably want your kids to join the dictatorship because the dictatorship is one that I think all sides will agree favors the rich, and so being a rich family in District 1, probably the most prestigious job my child can get is being part of that system that reinforces my family's success, that reinforces the success of their children. Being part of that system, being part of the dictatorship, probably seen as a very valuable, prestigious job in the higher district. But fourth is that you don't want the poor to succeed. As a rich person, you probably look down on the poor. You think they are subhuman. You think they are not as valuable as you. And insofar as you want to perpetuate the system where the rich are on top, you want to make sure that your child, someone who is from the wealthier district, is going to succeed. It's for all these reasons you have the incentive and the capacity to make sure that the rich always win the game. This means it's incredibly likely that the rich are going to be the ones winning the games on both sides. But meanwhile, for the poor, you're probably going to dread being randomly drafted because your child will be taken from you, sent to perpetuate the same system that suppresses you all, or in the most likely case, will probably die. But the difference is, as a poor person, I don't have the capital to train my child. I cannot best prepare them because I don't know what's coming, because I can't buy the book on what happens. I can't go on the website to find out what happens because I can't afford the basic necessities. So what does this mean then? The vast majority of times, the people winning the Hunger Games, or the Quid Games, to be honest, will be the rich, the powerful, the most prosperous people. This means that then OG cannot access any of their benefits because they're incredibly unlikely insofar as the rich are the ones winning these games 99% of the time. They try to weigh on psychological hope, but I think for the poor, this is far more psychologically devastating on their side, right? Because now there's literally no avenue of success. And even if you do make it out, you end up joining the dictatorship. I'll weigh on why this is terrible. But now, with this framing then, what actually matters in this debate? I think it's very clear. Their side has more death. Because very simply, only one person can survive in the Hunger Games. The ending of their games has to consist of the genocide of 299 other people. People who are probably morally fine. People who are not morally complicit in direct harms because of this fact. Because it's 25 people randomly chosen from other districts. There are probably people who are innocent, probably people who are vulnerable. The poorest are probably going to die on their side. They have to contend with this. They cannot take this down. And the killing won't stop. The violence won't stop until 299 people have died. On our side, the people die. Yes, and this is bad, but there's a potential for more lives because more people can win. And we think this is incredibly likely for a few reasons. First, the poorest regions are going to work together. Why is this? Because the reward is money, which is something they desperately need. Because when you're a single mother and your utmost concern is to put food on the table, and at the point where this means, okay, to maximize my chance to make some money, I'll be willing to work with someone from District 10, District 9, because this is the only way I can get a reward that comparatively improves my life when my life is really bad right now. But the second is that it evens it out, because on our side, Squid Games means that they get to play children's games. Children's games are games that don't require material resources, or at least heavy material resources, things like marbles, which means that they're probably more familiar with how to play the games on their side. They're able to succeed more comparatively on their side, where the game makers are the one who decides it, or it's on their side where it's like a survival-based game. It's much, much harder. I think children's games also tend to be team-based games, so there are structural reasons why you need to work with other people to make sure that all of you can make it through. Comparative to survival-based games, there's an active incentive to be the last one standing, which means that you have to kill people more on their side. But thirdly, is that people just don't want to kill on our side, right? It's brutal. We only do so if you really, really, really have to. If we're pushed to an edge, we're at a breaking point where we certainly lose the value of what it means to be human. I think it's incredibly hard to get people to this edge, but on their side, they necessarily force people into killing people, because that's the only way you are able to make it out of this game. But even apart from the poor, insofar as multiple people can win on our side, there will be alliances formed, if not on class lines, then others. There are probably things like shared religion, shared ethnic backgrounds that people will find, shared experiences to trauma. A district District 9 person and a District 10 person both go through red light, green light, and they hug each other out of fear, they're then very unlikely to betray each other because they formed a trauma bond. People can have shared new experiences. If I fall in love with a girl from District 4, we're going to stick together for the rest of the games. I don't weigh this for you because I think human life is inherently valuable for three reasons. One, choices. We have preferences that are wholly unique to our own. We ourselves that will never be replicated again in this universe. That uniqueness in and of itself is valuable. But second, we have dignity. We have basic human rights. We all have the right to free speech. We all have the right to life. Insofar as we have basic rights, this means we have an inherent value. But third is that humans can experience value. We can feel things like love. We can do things like hug babies. Insofar as we can perceive things to be valuable in the universe, this must mean we have an inherent sense of value in the first place. So insofar as our side is the one that can best preserve this, just because people die less on our side, we're the one who are winning this debate. But also just due to sheer numbers, the poor are more likely to survive on our side, again, because their side necessitates the genocide of 299 other people. That 1% of the top is going to be rich every single time. The person winning is going to be rich. On our side, the poor can band together, the poor can work together, form some sort of like class consciousness, form some sort of team to be able to succeed. I note that then these people are the most important people in this debate, and given that these people on our side have done nothing wrong and have done nothing to deserve the kind of treatment they currently suffer under, they're the most important actor. Insofar as we're able to get even a marginally better chance for these people's survival, for these people's happiness, we are winning this debate. But I think their side is also worse for the person who wins, because on your side, the winner only has one path ahead of them. They lose their entire life, must leave their family behind to join the oppressive system. This hurts you a lot if you are poor, because if you then lose your agency, you lose your mind, you lose yourself. Why is this? Because you win when you are win and you are promoted to the dictator's court. You're expected to fall in line with the norms and values. This means things like oppressing the poor are considered normal. This means you have to laugh at the poor's misery. This means you're probably expected to bottle up about trauma, because strength is something that is valued in a dictatorship. Any sign of weakness is a sign you can be compromised, and the dictatorship then has an incentive to remove you. This means your mental health will probably be terrible because you're expected to do things like bottle up your trauma. It increases your chance of PTSD and schizophrenia. But secondly, you probably lose yourself. The old memories fade away. You know your mother will never see you again. Insofar as we are social creatures that derive our value in living in a social reality, once your social reality changes to be one of a dictatorship, you entirely change. You become a different self. The other side reinforces the power of the rich. We already proved to you why it's likely that the richest win on both sides. But on their side, you create a self-fulfilling loop where the strongest, the most able, the most prepared are the ones who constantly get that new dictatorship position. On our side, there's a better chance that the poor are able to get into this position, but also comparatively on our side, multiple winners get the money. You can give back to your family. Families can spend more. There's more money flowing around in the economy, increasing aggregate expenditure. This is a certain benefit on our side, because the more people get money, the more money there is. Compared to their side, you don't get money. You simply leave your economy. You leave the community where you came from. It's incredibly bad. You're not able to give back to the people that love and raise you. Insofar as these people have value, they consider their lives incredibly important. We think giving back to these people is the most important thing.
Cool. Thank you for that speech calling on MG. Here.
Okay, hello. I'll be member of government. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that as a yes. Okay. I'm also going to drink something unspecified. Okay. I'll only be taking verbal POIs. I probably won't be looking at chat. I also probably won't accept until like 4:30 or 5. So if you ask before then, I probably won't accept you, just so you know. Okay. Get out of timer. Now I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. CG is going to win the debate in this round by showing how player agency and local mechanizations are going to give people more power to challenge the system that they exist in, and also give you some more reasons than just like a principle that lacks a mechanization on how you're going to be able to challenge District 1. But first, some framing. Why on Hunger Games are people likely to vote for stronger candidates? I think that one, like, people just vote for entertainment purposes. It doesn't look very good when you just like vote for like a bunch of old, meek, and frail people to vote against each other, which means that people in these districts are probably incentivized to vote for people who are likely to win. It looks quite good for your district. You probably get media attention. You probably get some amount of benefits if you are the one to win, because you are seen as the district which just had a recent victor. There's probably like things to celebrate and stuff like that. They want to feel represented on the national stage. This means that uniquely the only side, also you probably don't want to vote for rich people to go into these systems. Why is this? I think that like locally within your towns and your districts, like the son of like the richest family probably is going to be someone who has like a lot of power and influence. And if you vote for them, the rich family is probably going to get quite mad for you. So I'm not sure like what OO's push about like why rich people are going to exist on our side. I think it's uniquely only through Quid Games that you have rich individuals who are able to enter into these games. And then you're giving money to individuals who obviously will not use them in a good way and doesn't do anything to upset the system. The only chance you have to continue to privilege the rich by winning these games exists on OO. You exclusively only get individuals who are not within those positions on Gov side. On Op, you're forcing some degree of like older, meek people who have zero chances of winning these games into these systems. If you care about human dignity, if all these principles that OO tells you so much, then it's probably way worse for them comparatively, because you're forcing people that you know have zero chances of winning because they're 80 years old with dementia and like super unskilled into these games. At least on our side, you have some chance of winning the game and greater agency over yourself. Let's get into the extension on our side. The first extension that we're going to give you is that Hunger Games incentivizes elite engagements, and not right now, and gives you unique media power. The Hunger Games creates a structured media spectacle where participants are followed, selected, and celebrated. You can think of like when you select people for like sports teams and elections and stuff like that. Well, there will be likely some amount of media that is following who is being voted for, what the situations are like within these districts, because people are interested in who they want to like, who is going to enter into these games and stuff like this. This means that there are strong incentives for both elites and non-elites to engage meaningfully with these individuals. On the contrary, Quid Games is completely random. You have no idea who's entering within this. Two things that come as a result of this. First of all, this means that the Hunger Games stakes will be a lot elevated. Because the election process will make these tributes very visible and relevant to their communities. This means that you have local representation over like issues and greater capacity even during the games to upset the norms. I think that OG's case, even though we're going to fill in some of the mech they don't give you, is contingent on you buying that you are able to win the Hunger Games. However, by us telling you that you're still able to get some amount of media coverage, be able to show some amount of like talking about your district and representation on some degree, that means even if you lose the games, you still get some amount of benefit to be able to upset the system and provide greater resources to your district back home. So I think this is a unique benefit that you only get on the closing half. But essentially, when you have this media power, not right now, you're going to be able to turn these tributes into systems. They'll be well known, talked about, and sometimes even celebrated. Even if they don't win the game, if they're able to perform somewhat well, people will likely be talking about them. They're able to do some degree of like representation. I think that this is like essentially pretty good because yeah, basically, also this creates like incentives for like richer individuals to want to donate. Why is this so? I think that on Quid Games, like I don't think any of the OO teams necessarily prove to you why there's likely that these richer individuals are going to donate a lot of money to like betting over who's going to win for these games or not. I think that the reason why you have that incentive on our side is because these people are well known to the public, they're celebrated, and they know about them beforehand. There's some degree of media that makes it so people are more personally invested in these games. You can tell the stories of these people and where they are from and stuff like that. You uniquely cannot on Quid Games, which means that people want to donate because they want to see the person they are winning get this amount of money instead. So you have a unique incentive to get more money. So even if you believe that money is a really great capacity, it's still going to be necessarily better on our side where you have more incentive to donate more money. But why is it necessarily true? Yeah, why are you also like more likely to like treat these individuals better? Like I think you just like probably care about these individuals more. And there's going to be more media scrutiny. Why is this true? I think you can like look at like Hunger Games quite intuitively because you follow the stories of these individuals. They more care about the conditions of this. You can look to like Katniss and Peeta talking about like the pregnancy of like their fake child as a way to like get like the like elites to like stop caring about it. You have this unique avenue to try to like exist within the system and talk about different problems and stuff like that and bring attention to them that uniquely don't get on Quid Games, that allows you to get a unique like part of power over like the rich individuals and spreading our message. Sure, I'll take a POI from OO.
Lobbying won't work because you're scared of losing a position that you've worked so hard to be here. But also, it's entirely unclear why others will listen to you because they are rich. They'll probably discriminate. They'll probably devalue you. They probably
Wait,
don't care what you have to
I don't
say.
understand why they won't listen to you. The point of Hunger Games is that like you're like becoming like a really well-known candidate and engaging in these games. Even if you want to like argue to some degree that there's some amount of censorship and they don't want to hear these messages, these people have grown up within the system where their whole life, where they know that they exist under a dictatorship and stuff like that. They probably can find ways to like work around this because they know how the system works and they've actively engaged in it. I think this is very uncharitable. Like Katniss and Peeta found many ways to create a whole revolution against the district, even though they're under media scrutiny and stuff like that, because they've existed in the system and they understand the limitations of it and stuff like that. I think this is a very uncharitable characterization. But second, I think that like survivors are also less able to challenge the system on OO. Why is this true? Because selection is random, participants don't like have the ability to understand like more like what they're getting into and stuff like that. There's no time for like backstories and stuff like that, and for the ability to rally within media and stuff like that. Even if you like buy their idea of like shared winners and why that's good, like between districts and solidarity and stuff like that, I think that it's harder for them to gain as much like political power when they're not becoming icons and stuff like that. Like you're just like winning like a pool of money, like you're not gaining any like political leverage. The important delta that you get, in, like I'm not taking anymore. The important delta that you get is that you're actually becoming a part of District 1. These individuals are forced for you to listen to them within the future, you also probably get some degree of like legitimacy because the rich people have no reason to view you as good on OO's side. You are just a poor person that if you buy the poor person wins, you're just a poor person who won this game. On our side, you've become someone with leverage. You have beat 24 other people in a fight. They're incentivized to view you as greater. So I think that they're more likely to want to listen to you. But I also think that, like, second of all, we just get meaningful upward mobility and disruption. I think that OG doesn't fill in the mech on why necessarily money isn't enough and why you need the structural power. I think that it's importantly because you gain a lot of political influence. You directly engage in the systems probably within the future, and you are proximate to a lot of the individuals who engage in these games. After Quid Games, you have no engagement with the system. You're not close to them. You're not proximate. You have less ability to be able to offer your voice, and also you have no reason to necessarily be seen within a higher position. You are just a person who probably by chance, according to these rich people or something, were able to win and something like that. You'll stay systemically trapped within the system. You only win the prize. You're only like winning money that was funded by elite betting, which means that the very system that you've just won was just designed to make the rich richer. You're a product of their amusement. You gain no actual power. The only meaningful change you get to actually challenge the elite comes on our side of the house. So happy to propose.
Thank you for that speech calling on MO. Here.
Okay. I'll just quickly pull up a stop. I'll do three things in the speech. The first is I'm going to prove why it's more likely you'll survive, and I'll give a better mechanism than what OO gives you. Secondly, I'll prove why it's so good to survive, and I'll prove under this why we're then able to take down the bulk of CG's case. And thirdly, I'll prove why richer people are more likely going to succeed on their side of the house, and I'll impact it and describe the comparative because I don't think OO ever does that. But firstly, I'm going to give a quick clarification, is why will rich people actually bet a lot in these Quid Games? This is a prerequisite then. No, for OO's claims to stand, because the reason for this is that unless they prove that these people will actually get a lot of money, even if there are lots of like survivors, their impact of better wealth inequality, like better wealth equality, don't actually exist if you don't get a lot of money in the first place. Three reasons why. The first is, as a rich person, you probably have a lot of excess money of the wealthy. Just as, for example, you have wine collectors in the status quo. Even though you buy the wines, a lot of the time you simply don't drink it. Or people who like buy things like stocks, or like buy things like tokens within gambling, like I guess machines a lot of the time. Even though this often doesn't like actually succeed, they still do it because it just makes them feel happier. But secondly, I probably prove that these richer people right now in the status quo within like Panem are probably sadistic dictators. They are the ones who support the system because it actively like empowers them and gives them money. But thirdly, I prove that this probably becomes a social trend and fashion to do so. Insofar as like if the prime minister of the Panem probably does this, then it means that like a lot of other elite people will likely follow suit because they want to seem like really cool and do this thing. Then first, on the first part then of the speech, why is it more likely you'll survive? And here I'll give a better mechanism than OO, which is why you get like, apparently, you probably get definite food and definite resources. This is a better mechanism than OO's case, because food, firstly, is a prerequisite to everything. It gives you energy, it gives you happiness, it gives you like physical and mental health. But secondly, under this, everyone needs it. Like you cannot simply live without food. Compare this to OO's claim, like largest mechanism for this, which is you're apparently able to emotionally connect with other people. But I note that mental health and things like emotional connection is probably very tenuous at best and not actually guaranteed. You may be a sadistic person if you're very rich, but we think that you need food as a sadistic rich people. You still need that on both sides of the house. But secondly, why are you now not guaranteed food on government bench? Firstly, you live in the wilderness. Like you have less ability to get it innately because presumably you don't live in the wilderness like on the average, like the average person doesn't do that. So you probably can't find the berries that you need to like help you survive. You probably find like poisonous mushrooms or something. You cook that up and then you get poison in the very end. But secondly, you have to spend more time finding it as compared to one another and trying to survive. So that probably meant that it was harder for you to survive as well when you were not guaranteed food on government bench. But secondly, under this, I proved that limited game of 10 rounds as compared to infinite rounds is probably far easier for you to survive. So as compared to having 100 rounds, because everyone keeps on like surviving somehow, like you have only 10 rounds. So probably your physical and mental health is not as strained as what happens on their side of the house. But thirdly, you have more survivors. So compared like 1/300 compared to X out of 400, it's more likely to have like probably 10 out of 400 as compared to 1 out of 300. If you weigh this, I think it's incredibly clear that more likely people will survive. But second thing I'll do in this speech is prove why it's so good to survive. And this is then able to down CG's claim. I'll take you after this. We proved that it's probably going to be easier for you to change dictatorship. 3 reasons why. The first is wealth is the best form of power in this hellhole in the very first place. The reason for this is that richer people live in District 1 already, and that already like implied the fact that they were considered better because they were known as District 1. They were given better forms of like housing. They were given better food in the very first place. But secondly, there are more survivors, likely. That is because you're very angry when you see people killed for their entertainment. These richer people also probably trained less as well, and that probably meant that they were able to they were just as susceptible to things like, I guess, being killed or being killed by that really creepy doll in that red light green light game, I guess. So they also see District 1 and District 2 people die out as well. We'll prove later though why it's very likely that richer people don't die out as much on their side of the house when you have I guess the Hunger Games as compared to the Quid Games. But thirdly, it's likely that richer people do cooperate with this rebellion. They also suffer in this game as well. So I think a lot of the time they also though just need these poorer people for the industry. I think government likely does listen to these richer people. Even if they don't listen to poorer people, they likely listen to the entire country. This though is more impactful than what our opening tells you, because it proves that systemic change, it's able to happen on the outside of the house, which is able to then stop all the deadlocks of whether this is principally justified if you did not have it in the very first place. We thought that this was an incredibly good impact. Before I move on to the final part of my speech, I'll take a point.
Since the meritocratic voting system exists, then likely districts are going to vote individuals who know the wilderness to get food, who are meritocratic enough to survive strength games. The meritocratic voting system already trumps a lot of the points you gave.
Yeah, I get what you mean. So I think what likely happens, as I said, I'll prove later, is that richer people within District 1 or District 2 probably train their entire lives on your side of the house for things like the Hunger Games. And the reason for this is that they want a seat in Parliament. They have the capacity and the incentive to do so. Because one, they have the incentive to do so because they are richer. They don't want to they have more time. But secondly, they have the capacity to do so because I think a lot of the time these richer people have more time to do so. They don't have to go to manual labor work or child labor as compared to I guess training with their private coaches who have won this before. So I think a lot of the time it's easier for these richer people to do so. That's why it's probably not very meritocratic. So even if it's meritocratic within District 1 and District 2, it's easier for these richer people to do things. So I think it's to survive in this Hunger Games, and as compared to these poorer people who have to go to manual labor, don't have as much strategies within the wilderness, for example. They have to spend their time to manufacturing industries as compared to going out and training in the wilderness. But then let's talk about finally why richer people are likely going to succeed more on their side of the house. This takes down then OG's largest premise that poor people will be able to survive and therefore join the dictator, not be corrupted and help their district. OO starts to prove why richer people will succeed more on OG's side. But here's the actual comparative and the impacting. I think richer people, when Quid Game exists, means 3 things. The first, it's not certain that you'll actually get it because it's spread over I think all the districts. So it might be 400 people from District 2. So it's not actually certain that you will have to go train. But secondly, you have less time training. That probably meant that you had a weaker physical labor. Weaker physical body, right? But thirdly, compare this to poor people. They probably have more things like manual labor. They have to work in more strenuous tasks because they often don't have the technology to do so. That probably meant that they were physically stronger. And I think that a lot of the time, that probably meant that they were able to then take these richer people. Why then was this a massive problem on their side of the house? And I proved that OO doesn't impact this. I think richer people who are already in District 1 just get a far larger lobbying voice. They're already the largest voice in the status quo. They're the richest. They benefit off the system. But I think the person who also wins is one, probably really rich already, as we proved before. But secondly, I proved that they're really cold-hearted. In order to win, you probably have to kill a lot of other people. I think that's incredibly bad, right? Because it's a massive problem. If they win, for the other districts, I don't think they're going to try to empower systematically disadvantaged districts like District 12 or District 11. So what likely happens is you actually stretch out the wealth inequality gap that already happens in the status quo on their side of the house. That happened. Very proud to oppose.
Thank you for that speech. Calling on GovWhip. You here?
All right. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Panel, we already beat CO because they didn't even respond to any of our case. I want you to read the motion itself. The other teams in this round are essentially treating it as taking the Hunger Games over the Quid Games, but it's specifically the Hunger Games over the Quid Games in Panem, and how Panem is going to react to this, and how Panem is going to view this. Our case is very simple. While OG tells you that you get a seat in the dictator's chair and you can influence in that way, our case is one that gives all participants of each district to have influence on Panem. Why? We give you a straightforward case about media representation of each district and why the games on our side of the house are significantly more popular, thus granting you a lot more influence. Firstly, why do we then get a much greater media presence? One, what Kira tells you is that people have the capacity to vote for each of the candidates that represent them. Why is this important? A few main reasons. Firstly, people need to take into account about how good each candidate is. This means their physical attributes and intellectual skills. This means people within each district needs to take into account who is representing them. They do things like research. They do things like talking to the people who are around them, and they care about this for three reasons. One, these are 25 candidates that are representing your district. You select the highest quality candidate to represent your district on the national stage because many people will watch this. This is kind of like a sports team. This does not exist in ops world. Secondly, people have an incentive for their district to be represented because it gives people a platform to talk about the issues in their district, and they will forward these like the most vocal candidates. Thirdly, while OO tells you
POI?
careers exist, not right now. While OO tells you careers exist and OG says only districts 1 and 2, such as the rich, will have careers, the correct representation of this is that the careers are likely to be are unlikely to be effective. Why? Because of the very fact that each district will have their own careers and own candidates that people will vote to select. The difference between a District 1 career and a District 12 like athlete that are going to be competed is not going to be that much in skill because you're selecting the best people. The second response to this is what, in addition to what Kira has already told you, is basically like, look, the rich people in District 1 are not going to select the most rich people. They're not going to select the most influential people because they need them to run that district. And so they're obviously going to select athletes that are the most physically fit. This requires people to do research. This requires people to talk to each other. Secondly, when people put in great interest into the candidates selected for them, they spend lots of time watching them and making sure that their candidate receives the best media attention. Each district will do this which would necessitate a strong amount of attention. I want to highlight this because the incentives, not right now, the incentives I just mentioned here, that is to say, the people who support these candidates from each district does not exist in Ops World. In Ops World, candidates are selected randomly. There is a much lower incentive to watch and bet on the Quid Games. Why? When 400 players are randomly selected, people have no attachment to these individuals. You don't know who these people are. You don't know they are from your own district. When you actively vote for people in your own district, you are taking the opportunity to use the capacity you have and use your own agency to select the best quality candidate. You will have this capacity on their side of the house. It's just completely random. You lose that incentive of wanting to watch these games because of that main attachment you have. So like when people watch sports teams, like if I watch like a Toronto Raptors game, I do it because I was originally from Toronto. So because and like people from there watch these games because they are attached to their city. You don't get that on their side of the house. Secondly, these are people who could be fit or not. The games they play are completely random. This means that Op needs to argue that these children's games are going to be fair. You need to multiply the randomness of the player's skill and the randomness of each game, meaning that the chances of winning are there on their side of the house is significantly lower. Both op teams tell us that we are going to have the wealthy win. Kira points this out, but I want to clear this up. In District 1, where the richest people reside, they are not going to vote for the most influential or most rich people. And so the kinds of people that are going to be in this sphere are going to be ones that are like the most fit. And then lastly, then the kinds of people that you are going to get on their side, like the games that you're going to play, because they're completely random, you don't know the skills that each player actually has in like playing this
Eli.
game. This reduces the uncertainty of outcome in that game. This reduces the interest for people to wanting to watch it because most people are generally interested in watching games where you don't actually know the outcome. Why does the media care about this? Firstly, this is like a sport with massive attention. Each district who like has their own unique identities. I'll take at 5:30 the rich versus the rich versus the poor. This draws a lot of attention simply through spectacle, and the media wants to make this kind of money. Secondly, the media is likely to create a spectacle out of this even more. What does this look like? Firstly, in the Hunger Games, we see interviews of each candidate being done by Caesar Flickerman. These are done because rich people who run the media are betting on these games, want a storyline. Why are you able to get your message out this way? Firstly, rich people, and in general, like to hear storylines and they want to be entertained. People who are watching this for entertainment purposes. They want to enjoy the entertainment that they are seeing. Rich people don't know the lives of the poor. This means when the poor from District 12 talk about their struggles and their lives in poverty, this draws a lot of attention because it's a novel story that a lot of rich people might not know about or might not hear about. This is the direct attention that they get. Secondly, the medium just sells themselves will be reporting on this. They have their own incentives to make sure that the games are higher quality and bring the maximum amount of uncertainty. For example, highlighting or showcasing the underdog, or creating uncertainty and giving information to for which allows information to be given to bettors who want to bet. I'll take the POI.
Society so divided by class means that the lowest people will always be viewed as dirty and complete. The discrimination and economic disparity means that the rich will always be able to outtrain, outprepare, always be able to win these games.
Yeah, so this doesn't engage with the response that we gave, which is that in District 1, the kinds of careers you're going to get, like you're not going to pick the richest people. And secondly, the wealthiest people are not going to want to put their own children in this, right? So the wealthiest people are not going to want to vote for this anyway. So you're more likely to get a lower class disparity. Lastly, the response to this is like you're selecting 25 candidates who are the most athletically fit in one particular field or area, right? You're giving them the same game. On your side of the house, even if it's unfair in terms of wealth disparity, on your side of the house, the complete randomness of the game means that you have a much lower chance of even drawing attention. You have a much lower chance of even speaking about the issues that your community faces. Lastly, the media and lastly, this means that there is much greater scrutiny of how the games are run. If the games are seen as unfair because they are democratized and the entire nation of Panem knows about this, people can comment on this. This means that the media might lose ratings and money if the competition is not fair or not complex or boring. Secondly, because it's survival based, everyone has the same starting point and random assortment of skills. Considering these are the highest quality athletes, these players are aiming to survive. Lastly, the media and the game masters have an incentive for these games to be fair. Why? This increases uncertainty of outcome. That is to say, the media and the entire nation of Panem want to make sure that the winner of the Hunger Games is not known to the viewers. This is because people have a general tendency to enjoy things that are uncertain. This is why two best teams in a sports tournament draw the most amount of attention, because on their side, random assortment of people would mean that you don't get this kind of attention. So we allow all the districts to get the most amount of attention and draw attention towards the issues that each district actually faces. With that said, proud to propose.
Thank you for that speech. Calling on Upwhip. Here.
Okay, so am I audible? Good.
Yeah, all good.
Then my time will soon start from 3, 2, 1, and now. CG says we didn't give them enough to respond to their main constructive case, but their only case that is not derivative of opening government is to say there will be more media representation for the people, which means there will be more media who report these things because people have stronger attachment to it. But just we tell they have no impact on this point, cannot make them win that debate because we think that the economic benefits should never be the core thing that we're going to concentrate about, even though we're saying that. And secondly, even though we think that the economic benefits by more media reports and people's attention on it will be important because it can boost economy or something like that, I still think that it will be symmetrical in both sides of the house. Because even though people are randomly selected to attend this game, people will still be so interested of this game, right? It does not necessarily mean that you do not directly vote for it and you are not interested in it. Just like lots of Chinese, I'm a Chinese personally. Lots of Chinese, they never vote for American presidential selection, but we do discuss the American politics daily, right? Even though it does not vote. So whether you vote or not does not actually matter that much, because the game itself is interesting or it is important to you, then you will feel like you are going to like watch it. And here comes the economic benefit of it. So CG is out of the debate for not giving us as any constructive case and no importance analysis. Now let's tackle the OG's case. What OG said? Firstly, it says that if the poor people take their best case, if poor people from the 11th or the 12th district happen to be the lucky ones to finally win the game, and he finally joined the dictatorship, it is possible for him to slightly change the system. But Judge, firstly, it is not likely to happen because just as we characterized before, there will be lots of the rich people who have professional training, and it's extremely difficult for those poor people from the district 11 or district 12 to win this game, especially in the Hunger Game when it's testing all the survival skills. So it is a very fairer outside the house for the poor people to win because we're testing the children game, right? It does not actually require specific skill. But secondly is that even though we buy their best case, even though poor people just when so luckily gets backstab some rich people and finally be one of the dictator, I think it would be very lucky for him to be an evil guy because Because the only way for you to win as a disadvantaged guy to win this game and be the only survivor is to backstab your teammates, right? Because there's nothing called cooperation here. And just think of it, a cold-blooded guy, a cruel guy, even though he's from poor district, but given that he's already doing this evil thing, then backstab his teammate, I do not think he will be a good mobilizer. And his existence, his joining to this dictatorship course will not be huge difference. So let's take a look of what closing government brings us to this debate. Firstly, we are the only house to tell you that why poor people are more likely to win in that outside house for two reasons. Firstly, poor people are actually doing lots of manual jobs in District 11 and District 12 where they are doing all the mining jobs and agricultural jobs. I think that they are physically stronger and right. So it's very likely for them to win some like children games, for example, tug of war. So secondly is that because there's more population of this port, it's not like the population is equally and averagely divided in district 1 to 12. It will be like only 1% of people live in the first district and 2% people live in the second district, etc. And I think that's more than like 30 or 20% of people will live in the 12th district, and this will be like a pyramid structure, right? For example, from district 1 to district 6, there will be only like 20% of total population. So if we are randomly chosen by it, I think firstly, in probabilities perspective, there will be like 80%, there will be like more people. Let's say 80% of poor people will be likely to opt in this game, so they will be more likely to win this game. But secondly is that because they have no specific training and there's actually no need for specific training of winning the game, especially for like tug of the war or those kind of children game, I think that there will be more odds for the poor people to win this game. And Josh, why it is so important for the poor people to win this game? Because we're going to call for change. We're going to call for structure change. Why is that so? Yes, I'll take it.
The baseline characterization is crazy. You can still probably vote people like Katniss from District 12 who will still win archery, but it's impossible for you to like have an old man play tug of war.
We're saying that. We're not saying that there will be even though there could be like old men or the children opt into the system, but I think the opportunity for the random choice will be like like it will be symmetrical because both old people and children from the rich district and the poor district, they have a similar opportunity to opt in, right? And I think the majority of people will be people who are competitive, like who age between like 15 to like 50, and I think there will be majority of the players, and other players will be symmetrical because the rich people can also have like old people who will be also randomly selected. But again, why it is so important for this poor people to win? Because you active call for change. Just after you're saying that what you're fighting for in your life and the risk of your teammates, for your like friends or families, it's the entertainment of the rich people. Just do know that the characterization of the game in the Squid Game, the Quid Game, is that the rich people is literally entertaining on you by betting on you. They feel like, oh, it's an interesting thing. They're ruining your dignity, not only that, but also dignity. So people will actually be irritated. People will be angry. And after they survive, as they just proved they have high likelihood to survive, they will come back to their original district and they will call for rebellion. Yeah, in the worst case, that will bring up the hope to say that. And secondly, is that they will bring up a propaganda. So we cannot let this kind of things happen. So people will be more likely to be angry here. And I also want to do a comparison here to say that people will be even worse in the comparative style because you are justifying the dictatorship. You are telling the public that it is the best player, the best person, the strongest one who deserve to be the position of the dictatorship. You're justifying it while ignoring the resource imbalance between the rich and the poor, before the well-trained, well-prepared professional players and the normal citizens, right? You're having this parity, and you're trying to justify the dictatorship rule, and it is inheriting the worst thing in government side of house. But comparatively, while in outside of house, with our idea and our hope, our call of retribution, not retribution, I mean rebellion will be like to succeed. Because I think that economically speaking, they do rely on the industries for the like 11th or 12th street, for example, agriculture, for example, mining. And given that so many populations in this district and the economy relies, it's a very likely the worst case, even though it is not directly overthrow all this kind of ruling class, overthrow the dictatorship. At very least, there will be a high likelihood, there will be a very high likelihood to negotiate with this poor people to say that, oh, we're going to give you more benefit, we're going to give you more social welfare, we're going to give you tax for the poor people. And it's the only tangible structure change that we're going to tell, instead of what's opening up things to say that we're going to also overthrow this thing. We have more tangible and more immediate change is the negotiating and the backstab of the rich and privileged class. Based on all the reasons, still is the only house to propose a tangible impact with folding mechanization. Based on all the reasons, very proud to oppose.
Thank you for that speech, and that concludes the debate. You guys may now cross the house, and I'd like to invite my panelists to hop over to deliberation room 1 for us to speak. Thanks. Cool.